We might as well roll because I kind of like just being able to chit chat before this stuff up. Hey, how are you?
What I wanted to ask is, I'm actually starting with the cryptocurrency thing. So what I wanted to know is, since I'm starting off, should I start at though like start on because I'm quite lost and I'm still testing
No,
everything out on
Bitcoin,
my
buddy.
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. Go no further.
Go
Just
no
say
further.
Bitcoin.
Just say Bitcoin.
Okay.
Hopefully he stays with Bitcoin. What's up, Raz? Justin, how are you?
What's up, Lauren? How we doing?
Gentlemen,
How's life in San Diego? Oh, should I dox you? I guess you're kind of both from there, but kind of not. Raz,
No, it's
doing.
good. We're finally getting a little rain here,
Oh,
but
nice.
yeah, yeah, it's good times.
Too late. I guess you've already been doxed. No. Yeah. You enjoy the surfing crowd, huh, Raz?
It's Roz, but yeah, I do. I do
Raz!
enjoy a little surfing. Yeah, no
Raz.
worries.
Yeah, Raz and I, believe it or not, have met in person and hung out. So I'm an idiot.
It's all good. I'm not one of those people that cares about how the name's pronounced. My favorite is the Brazilian version. They don't pronounce the R at the beginning of the word or the Z, so they call it Has.
Oh, I like that. Haas. Du Haas. Justin, you've been kind of MIA, but I do see you are raising controversy as usual. Way to go, sir. Keep stirring the hornet's nest.
I don't even want to, man. It sucks.
Well, I guess we might as well just talk about the elephant in the room, huh? The Utah bill. You wanna get into that a little bit, Justin?
Yeah,
Maybe
what I'd love to do is have Joe on, um, since I don't want to dox what goes on in DMs. But anyway,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
Hopefully we can get him on here. But I mean,
yeah,
I guess you could just give a brief I don't know. I'm trying not to be as controversial and like, tear down guys like Dennis Porter, even though I really hope people go do their own research. It just seems like there's certain people that I don't know, maybe they're not necessarily bad actors, but it seems like instead of, pushing Bitcoin as their number one pursuit, raising money is their number one pursuit, and I struggle with that. So I mean, like I said, I'm not perfect, and I understand you need to monetize in fiat in order to keep going, but I think sometimes it just becomes the number one priority, which is I struggle with that.
yeah, I understand. I've
So
really
about
kind of.
the no, go ahead. I'll step down and give you the floor, Justin. Sorry.
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, man.
No, I can go on rolls. I just wanted to see if you could basically give us a breakdown of that bill and then your thoughts on it.
Yeah, the wording is extremely confusing. I understand it's written uh, probably by lawyers, but there's some caveats there illegally that make it seem really, really confusing. And the more I look at it, the more I think that, and I'm going to post about this later, but I believe that these politicians are just setting up to buy U.S. treasuries, probably through Tether. And so I think it needs to be looked at closer. But
Yeah, the language is weird, huh? Like I think a ton of people pointed out the fact that the bill actually does not ever use the word Bitcoin in it.
yeah, it doesn't use the word Bitcoin, and it seems to um, say assets. I believe this one is one of them. One state is with a market cap of half a 500 billion, and but then the very next line is line 178 that says or, and then the way I see it is that it's saying U.S. Treasuries digital
Oh,
is just Tether is what they're talking about.
okay, that's interesting. I don't think I picked up on that. It's like an either or both. kind of thing, like
It's or
this thing.
Man,
Oh,
some people are just getting. I blocked 2 or 3 people because, man, it's like, what are you so angry about, man? Like cheap juvenile insults against me just for saying, hey, what is this saying?
yeah.
So I don't understand
It
getting
did
so
get
mad
juvenile.
about
I
it.
was reading some of those comments. It was pretty personal and ridiculous. It was kind of like even lower than high school, maybe an eighth grade level insult,
Yeah,
which
and
to
Dennis,
me is
hey, and I'll
yeah.
say
Go ahead.
this too for Dennis is that he will engage with you, and kind of the reason I have been a little more open minded about Dennis is that he had a conversation with a friend of mine at the sailor party, and was pretty sincere. So anyway, at least Dennis will. I didn't appreciate that he said the only thing I've accomplished is retweeting Fred Krueger, but
Yeah, was that what he said yesterday? I noticed that he quoted something of yours on his own
yeah,
page.
which who
So
cares? I'm not pretending to be important
no, I agree.
whatsoever.
Yeah, good for you. No, I like that. That's cool. I know I struggle too because I have had people tell me some good stories about Porter and about the dynamic duo behind that whole thing that are actually doing good things in Washington. So I don't want to be the jerk that's trying to throw some stupid smear campaign for no reason. If they actually are doing good, I just like I said, I think I've pointed out my issues, which I don't know. I have a hard time with things, even personally. If I tried to start my own brand and was like trying to generate fiat revenue and promote myself, I just struggle with that for some reason. So I think that's my big rub. And I just like all I can say is, hey guys, just do your own research. Make sure you feel good about where you're throwing your money to you know, do your Washington stuff because there are multiple groups that are in Washington and helping Bitcoin education for our elected officials.
I mean, the group at Bitcoin Policy Institute
Yeah,
is
yeah, they seem pretty legit.
super impressive, and I'm not aware of anybody asking for money. Maybe they do on the down low, but also Dom Bay. I mean, who does more with
Yeah,
asking for less credit or donations than Dom, and
yeah,
getting results too? So
yeah.
yeah.
I agree,
Anyway,
man.
yep.
Hey, Raz, have you checked this bill out at all? Oh, Roz, excuse me, Roz.
I have not dug into it too deeply, but yeah, hopefully they keep it all Bitcoin. That's the right thing to do, and I think that's the leverage for the states, right? Because in the end, right now, uh, the federal government controls the money, and all these
Yes.
states kind of depend on the generosity of their federal counterparts. And I think that Bitcoin is the opportunity for them to differentiate and go and be in control of their own budgets and have some autonomy over policy and things like that. So I do think that in the end, maybe Utah messes up, but there's all these other states. Somebody's going to get it right, and whoever gets it right first, people are going to emulate. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Well said, Roz. Yeah, no, that's wonderful. It's by the way, this bill still has to pass the Utah Senate, from my understanding, correct, Justin? Like this is not law or
Correct.
anything.
Yes.
Yeah. So it could, I mean, possibly, I don't know, how it works in Utah, but I'm assuming there's still a possibility for revision or something. So
Yeah.
who
From
knows?
what I understand, this bill has gone further than any other, so maybe
Oh,
that's why
okay,
it's getting so much attention.
sure. Well, they say there's nothing bad for Bitcoin, so I mean, hopefully, all these things are good in spite of, you know. But honestly, we should be able to have conversations, candid conversations about, pros and cons of things and people. And to me, it's about accountability and making sure we're on the right track. Because, like you said, if we are, leaving that bill and the way it's worded wide open to possibly, you know, Tether or whatever else, then I mean it's kind of undermining Bitcoin really. So hopefully guys like you will call these things to task. But I don't like it when you just get criticized on a personal level. I was reading some of those posts and whatever they call them now, tweets. I mean, whatever they are,
Yeah, and I was
reposts. It was
just
just stupid, man. I feel
respond.
bad for you.
Yeah, it's frustrating, but I don't usually block people, but when it's zero constructive criticism, then I'm done.
Sorry, just letting Cam up on stage. Cam, good morning. How are you?
Hey, what's up, guys? Give me just 1 second here.
Yeah, no problem. Take your time. We were talking about the bill. I'm sure you heard. If you have weighed in on that or read it or
Yeah,
what your
yeah,
thoughts are.
and yeah, Justin and I have been going back and forth a little bit on it. Not a lawyer, and so obviously, um, take everything I say with several grains of salt. But I'm reading it quite a bit differently than Justin. I guess I just want to ask Justin a question on where he's seeing. He mentioned the or, either cryptocurrencies, or sorry, digital assets with a market cap of 500 billion, um, which I believe Bitcoin is the only one that would qualify there, right? Over whatever I think it gives a 24-month look back. Um, anyway, Justin, are you reading that or as they could only hold one or the other? Is that how you're reading that?
I'm trying to pull it up here, but I believe that that's where it's the inclusion of assets, correct? So that I believe it's line 178. Trying to find it again here. I believe I saved the PDF, but
Yeah, let me pull it up here.
and what would be nice is if we could get a lawyer to confirm some of this. I guess my main thing was just that Dennis came out and said it's a Bitcoin strategic reserve, and it is not.
Well,
Um,
sure. I think maybe some people, not necessarily you, are getting hung up on the fact that it doesn't mention Bitcoin by name. But as I read the definition of digital assets as defined in the bill, and then so it goes through. Bills, the way my novice mind understands them, they always give definitions at the beginning to just elucidate the topics that are going to be explained in the bill to make sure everyone's on the same page. So it goes through and it defines blockchains, digital assets, hardware wallets, and I believe mining. And then it goes in and it says that that the treasurer of the state, it can hold digital assets through a qualified custodian, and that a qualified digital asset means a digital asset with a market capitalization of over 500 billion average over the previous 12 months, so it's 12 months, or a stable coin. So, I did take some logic courses in college, and when you're doing formal logic, an or is equivalent to an and. So I don't see that or as necessarily exclusionary or an either or, but rather just saying it could hold either of those two categories. So a digital asset with a market cap over 500 billion or a stable coin. To my mind, I don't understand why a bill would go through all that work to define a blockchain, to define a digital asset in such a way that Bitcoin clearly aligns, and then explicitly say that the treasurer, and it goes through and it says you can't hold it in these funds, and it lists about 20 funds you cannot hold it in, but then it does say there are funds that the treasury can hold it. So let's see. So it says you can't hold it in the Navajo Trust Fund. You can't hold it in the Radioactive Waste Perpetual Care and Maintenance Account. You can't hold it in the Reinsurance Fund. You can't hold it in the Uninsured Employers Fund. All these funds you can't hold it in, but then it does say lower in the bill that there are the funds that they can hold it in. Let's see if I can get down to there. That the trade the state treasurer may invest a portion of the public funds in qualifying digital assets in the state disaster recovery account, the general fund budget reserve account, the income tax fund budget reserve account. So listen, it does say the amount of digital assets or stable coins cannot exceed 10% of the total amount of public funds in that account.
What
So I
line is
guess
that, Cam?
which part? The 10%?
Yes.
186B.
I don't want to get too deep in the weeds with this because we're gonna bore the living
No,
hell out.
in any case, the point I was making is I don't understand why they would go through all this trouble to define digital assets in a way that includes Bitcoin and Bitcoin only, and then explicitly say um, that the treasurer can hold digital assets that meet that qualification,
I'll
and
tell
then
you exactly why they would do it, because they're co-opting Bitcoin for marketing when in fact what they want to do is have a tether fund. So you
but
say it's about Bitcoin, but you know what we're going to do for now? Let's begin by buying stable coins,
sure.
basically digital US treasuries, while Dennis Porter is beating his drum and saying this is a Bitcoin strategic reserve. I'm not accusing them of that, but it's the obvious play.
Well, and I guess I would say it allows them to do both the
Yeah,
way
Yeah,
I
I
that's
read
agree
it.
with you.
perfectly logical. So it leaves the door open for either or, it sounds like,
Yes,
right?
it does. I was not the one saying that it precluded Bitcoin on that basis, but the other, you know, and again, I understand Lauren doesn't want to get into the weeds. It's
Not
probably
really.
Oh, I'm
terribly
sorry.
boring for
No,
No,
most
it's fine. I
people.
just think we're gonna put half of the audience to sleep and
Yeah,
maybe
I
go.
understand. I agree. Yep.
sure, sure. And I sorry, I just thought that was the topic of the day, so that's why I jumped in. But
De jour. We prefer the word de jour, sir.
de jure. In any case, just to be the yin to Justin's yang, my reading.
Yin yang. No, we appreciate all. I actually would like a lot more people to weigh in on this because I kind of like keeping a poll in my head, and it sounds like from the responses that I've read and received, it's kind of more positive, like more like woohoo, let's go, like net positive versus net negative. And I appreciate Justin's view, just because I
Sure.
do want, you know, if there's a potential in here to have a net negative or, you know, introduce something in the back door, then, you know, guys like Justin calling it out is, you know, accountability and whatnot. So I appreciate all the perspectives. So
Yeah,
definitely love the
totally.
conversation.
And
Yeah.
I guess as a follow-up, why would it be bad for them to hold both? I guess, if banks are going to be holding both, if end users are using stable coins and Bitcoin, I guess I don't see why that's quite the nightmare scenario that they could hold both. And then I just to give Justin some more kudos, I definitely think that obviously from his previous track record that Dennis Porter claims definitely need maximum scrutiny, right? And so, but that doesn't mean that he's going to be wrong every time.
That's well said,
uh,
Cam.
sure.
Yeah, no, it's
So,
well said.
but yeah, as someone with interest in Utah and Bitcoin, man, I think this is, very progressive and good for Bitcoin as I read it. If you're someone who wants governments to own Bitcoin, and another thing to remember is like this bill does not allow for any funds to uh, be allocated at this point. This is just laying the framework. So you're probably at least another year away before the legislature would ever, a year or more before, their next legislative meeting a year from now, before they're going to, at minimum, allocate any funds to the account. So I think um, they're just kind of setting the possibility, allowing it in law to happen prospectively in the future. So something to keep in mind. They're not going to be buying Bitcoin next week.
Yes, and no strategic Bitcoin reserve exists in Utah today. Major breaking or big breaking this just in. So yeah, I listen. As far as the state stuff goes, I've backed way off on that because to me it's totally different. My whole thing has been that the issuer of the global reserve currency will never signal their own demise by trading $1 trillion for a million Bitcoin. It's never going to happen. And so the senator from Wyoming is raising money on this. That's a fact. There's zero chance it will pass. And it needs 238 votes to pass the House. It wouldn't get 10. before it ever went
Sure.
to the Senate, where the average age is 150 years old, and it's people who are desperately trying to maintain status quo with insider trading and backing the dollar. It'll never happen. So every
Sure.
time she comes on with a Dennis Porter-esque post, or she's with, David Bailey or whoever, she's raising money. That's a fact.
I think, I've been reading other threads on X, and I think the one maybe area where where our interests could align is if their play is stable coins, and they want to push capital into stable coins to pump treasuries, then pumping Bitcoin is a good way to increase demand for stable coins, because the higher the Bitcoin trading price, the more stable coins one needs to trade Bitcoin. So just a thought. But I'm with you. Be skeptical of governments and politicians at all times.
Yep, we can all agree on that.
Yeah, totally agree. Wouldn't mind if other people would come and weigh in, but if you don't, totally understand. I'm not an expert. I'm like the guy who would get the Cliff Notes version to stuff just because reading wasn't my forte. So read very few books in college, so I had to run it through the old AI just to so I could condense it down just to make sense. AI threw the word Bitcoin in a bunch of times, but then when I started hearing people say the actual bill doesn't say AI, then I had to go back and actually look at the bill and say, oh, yeah, it's just odd. So I did a little more homework on the bill than I actually really wanted to, especially since it's still not officially passed or anything. I don't know, man. Justin, you think net positive, net negative for Bitcoin?
Um, Bitcoin doesn't care. If we're talking about the price of
Yeah, no, for
Bitcoin,
sure.
then
Yeah.
then I guess essentially it's a net positive. But
Yeah, I mean, I don't think price is what, like, guys like you and I are really concerned about more. It's more about like adoption, like pushing the whole, separating money from state and central banks. So, good thing, bad thing, or is it still too early to really see because of what you've called out, which is, hey, the potential to not be a Bitcoin reserve bill?
well, individual states owning Bitcoin as a reserve asset, at very best, will be neutral. I mean, if the goal is separate money from state, then at best it would be neutral. But
Yeah.
the vast majority of the 2024 class of Bitcoiners is all about number go up and investment. So in
Yeah.
2017, when there was an existential crisis going on with Bitcoin, and we can read all about that, the argument was very different. And Bitcoiners at that time had studied Bitcoin and understood it and hated the government, and it was in the Fed. Now we really transitioned to mend the Fed. And if you constantly shine a light on politicians who are grifting power and money from Bitcoin, then you're a hater. You don't understand Bitcoin. You hate the United States. I've been accused of that as well, um, which is it's just preposterous.
Oh,
So,
you moved out of the country, huh?
yep,
I'm kidding. Yeah, they put an M on end the Fed and changed it to mend the Fed, huh? Yeah, funny. We
correct.
can't even end the United States Postal Service, which is an obvious shit show. And so how are we supposed to mend or end the Fed when we're just struggling? So
Yeah, at the end of the day,
um,
there's no sense um, even responding to most of the personal stuff if you shine a light on the Lummis bill, because that is absolutely preposterous and ludicrous. And every time that woman goes on TV, well, I shouldn't be speaking in absolutes, but the majority of the
99.9999.
yeah,
Yeah.
she's misrepresented what it's about. And listen, we can just basically print money by revaluing the gold certificates from 1971, which holds no significance whatsoever, and just suddenly, to no cost to the taxpayers, we can have 1 million Bitcoin on the balance sheet. and or in a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and it's absolutely preposterous and ludicrous. So if you say if you put your name behind that, then you're putting your name behind a loser because it's bullshit. It was written by VC grifters and crypto people. It's the Washington crypto lobby. That's a fact. So that's never going to happen. Don't attach yourself personally to that because it's not going to happen. That's a non-starter. It's a loser bill. It wouldn't get 10 votes in Congress.
Can you give
So
us the lowdown for people that haven't checked that out?
yes, the proposal is to buy 1 million Bitcoin over 5 years. So to buy half of what MicroStrategy owns now every single year, and to hold it for at least 20 years. And
Yeah, I
so,
think I'm not weighing in with an opinion just because I'm trying to be the moderator or mediator where I don't want to cause division. But I think one of the problems I see in any community, but specifically the Bitcoin community, we're all just looking for the thing that validates and verifies our position. And so any little crumb we hold on to, and then we double down on it instead of actually being really analytical when we look at it and pick it apart to see where the problems are. And if there's anybody that's even calling into question or scrutinizing it in any way, we seem to get tons of flack. And I think that's happened in the case of you a ton, Justin. And also, when you were calling out, some shenanigans of guys like Samuel Porter, I think we get criticized, and I've tried to do it even with kitty gloves on and tiptoe around and say it nicely, but it's difficult because we're causing it feels like we're causing division in the community, but in actuality we're all on the same team here, guys. But we're just saying, like, hey, is there problems here? Is this actually a net negative long term? So I really want guys like you to keep speaking out, and hopefully we can have these discussions in an adult manner instead of like, the criticisms you were taking were just asinine. It reminded me of eighth grade. So hopefully we can change this around and go, yeah, hey, we need to listen to guys like Justin because he has some great points.
yeah, and I think that the next step in the evolution from the Washington crypto lobby, who pretends to be Bitcoiners, and that's really got fired up at the Nashville Bitcoin conference when you just had a nonstop stream of the Ryan Selkis type, you know, well, I'll leave personal insults out of it, but these people who pretend like they're Bitcoin maximalists and they're all about quote unquote adoption and all that. The next evolution, I believe, has already started. Is that um, these guys who you saw in the press conference the other day from the Banking Senate subcommittee, that they are Bitcoiners. So David Sachs is a Bitcoiner, that he's working hard in Washington for quote unquote Bitcoin adoption, which when you study Bitcoin, you find out right now that's not necessarily a good thing. And no, I'm sorry, not everything is good for Bitcoin. So, but we're going to be told that David Sachs and these politicians are Bitcoiners, and um, that Bitcoin desperately needs them fighting for us in Washington. It's a bunch of
Yeah,
bullshit, and they're
yeah,
controlling the narrative. So
Justin, I
look
think
out that for that to happen.
for sure. I think you were getting to this point earlier, which was if you're looking to just pump the bags, then yeah, like state adoption could be good for the bags, but if you're actually looking to separate money from state and central banks, then really having more time for smaller folks to accumulate Bitcoin would actually be probably, or maybe not even probably, would be a better longer term solution. So totally understand what you're saying. I also agree with you when you're talking about um, the wolf in sheep's clothing scenario of people coming in under the guise of being a Bitcoin maximalist. I think recent revelations that hit close to home for a lot of us show that this happens all over, and in Washington is no exception. So I struggle with even Bitcoin Magazine, and for me, I'm trying to rationalize like, yeah, I get it. They need to monetize that thing so they can pay the bills and keep the lights on and keep their employees going. But at what cost? I've talked about the uh, Jimmy Mr. Beast's games, and it's cool to me because I'm into psychology and why people do the things that they do, and it just seems like at like everybody has a price at which they will like just throw their morals out the window, and it seems like I struggle with that, and so I have to just vote with my feet, and so like I'm not gonna go to that conference because I don't agree with everything, even if it's like, oh yeah, we've got to do this and this and this because uh, yeah, he might be an altcoiner and whatever else, and yeah, we accept money from altcoin companies because we need. To me, it's just trying to justify compromising your integrity, and I'm not. That's not what I stand for, so I just won't go. I'll go early and hang out with some of you cool plebs, but it's not something that I'm interested in doing. Not to mention, I like hanging out with plebs far more than I like sitting in a conference and listening to a speaker anyway. So,
Well, let's remember that there are some who have not sold out, and one of those is Matt Kratter, who was invited,
yes,
paid to speak at the Bitcoin conference, refused to do so. He also
love
didn't
that
try to
guy.
get any attention or accolades for doing that. You've got guys like Knut Svanholm, you've got guys like Giacomo, and a lot of the Europeans over there who just absolutely laugh and shake their heads at us. So there's a lot of guys who never strayed from telling you to study Bitcoin, hold Bitcoin in cold storage. That's the only thing that matters. To understand why fixing the money fixes the world. You've got guys like Eric Stacks, Jeff Booth. These guys never sold out. They've stuck. They've stuck to the message, and they will tell you what you should focus on is studying Bitcoin and owning Bitcoin. So see, guys like David Bailey. When was the last time they ever did that? They constantly are in Washington D.C. telling you that that's what's important. It's not what is important. Your self sovereignty and your freedom is, and the only thing that matters is you owning Bitcoin and holding on to it. So when you study Bitcoin, that's what you want to do. So people who are sticking to that message, I know we say don't trust, verify, but those are the people you should be following. The others are trying to distract you, and they're really, really good at it. They make a ton of money and they have a ton of power by doing that. And controlling the thinking of especially new Bitcoiners just corrupts them right from the start. And I don't doubt for a second that guys like Garlinghouse as well are probably involved in the funding and Washington crypto lobby, and they're co-opting Bitcoin in order to do it because that's the luxury brand. It's really sickening, and I wish more
Justin
people
up
saw that.
here just spitting fire this morning. Man, love to hear it.
Don't get me
Wow,
started, man.
words of wisdom. Luke, welcome to the stage, sir. How are you today?
I'm good. Just waking up,
Nice.
going to get a
Yeah, get some
coffee.
coffee, man.
What are we talking about? Scammers,
We actually
shitcoiners?
we actually just fired off with the whole. Have you seen the bill in Utah?
No, I see Justin posting about it all the time. It's hilarious.
Yeah. We
What are they doing? It's what is it?
big breaking news. It's huge. It's a Bitcoin strategic reserve, sir, is what it is. Frankly, uh,
Uh,
yeah. No, that's
I mean that he's just the dude that posts all that stuff. He's just a write off. I mean, he's just weird
you
ego
got rain down there,
vibes.
buddy. It sounds like your window wipers are on.
No, it's
Oh,
raining.
nice.
It's raining in LA and
Um,
San Diego, and people are dying.
oh God. Yeah, but I don't know. I think with all these bills and stuff, I think it's cool that it's kind of on the minds of everyone right now, and it's cool that people are fighting for Bitcoin. Obviously, Homeboy is annoying, and he's a scammer or whatever. But I
I
feel
like that.
like it's inevitable.
Homeboy,
It's Homeboy. I don't even want to say his name, but it's just
say
inevitable.
more.
I mean, I feel like states and governments are going to adopt it eventually, and it doesn't matter when, because it kind of I feel like Bitcoin just takes its own path
Yeah,
through
we
this.
were saying like Justin had a good point, which is basically, if we're looking to get our bags pumped, then maybe the state adoption thing could be good. But if we're actually looking to separate money from state and central banks, maybe, a little more time where, just the average Joe is able to accumulate some more Bitcoin would be more positive. So
Yeah, yes, that would be amazing if we had at like 4 more years of normies stacking.
4 more years. Yeah.
I just, I think, I think most people just aren't gonna get it until it's like $1 million a coin, and then they're gonna be like, "Oh, my friend has it. I'm gonna get some now."
I agree.
Cam, go ahead, weigh in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry to jump in again. I
No, it's fine.
agree.
There's only four of us. It's like we're having a conversation. Go ahead.
I think, as idealistic as it sounds, that it would be great for the price to stay low to let everyone stack. I don't know how much you guys buy into the whole Myers Briggs thing, but just using that as an example, I'm sure you guys have
What is
Hey Cam,
what is
is that
that?
that personality test thing? Or yeah,
personality types.
maybe just
Yeah.
give a breakdown of that just so people that
Yeah,
aren't familiar with it.
so there's four different binaries, introverted versus extroverted, and basically it just is the first one. So you're either an I or an N, or sorry, an I or an E, and then I forget what the other three are, but it just kind of the idea that, I mean, we don't need to go into the major specifics on it, but the idea is that there seems to be certain types of personalities that have a higher proclivity toward Bitcoin, right? Either the curiosity to look into it, the audacity to choose a different system that isn't the mainstream. These are things that not everyone has in their nature to do. Now, and so I don't think that through education alone, given the status quo of our financial system and financial advisors and banking and the Fed and the dollar, there's just certain people who just cannot think outside of that system. They just are, they're system thinkers. They're born in this system. To them, it's just the way it is. It's the way it's always been. It's the way it always will be.
Yeah,
But
Cam, I struggle to reprogram my own brain. So absolutely,
Sure.
totally agree.
And then there's others of us who are like, for whom it clicks, right? Who maybe they are a little bit more rebellious in general, or maybe they're more open to new ideas around money, for whom this is like, it makes a lot of sense. And not only does it make sense, but they're extremely confident that this Bitcoin thing is going to subsume the financial world, which I believe. So, that it's just math and physics at this point. Once Bitcoin has reached a certain threshold of public awareness, the better money is going to win. And but
100%.
but did when we switched from glass beads to gold, was that because everyone studied gold? Is it because they studied the properties of gold versus their glass beads, and they were making this like calculated decision about which um, asset they should store their value in? No, it was FOMO. It was NGU and FOMO. Their glass beads were dropping in price and gold is climbing in price, right? And so it was either you make the switch or you get wiped out. And so I think that for the remaining normies, for whom the potential of like strategic Bitcoin bills and Bitcoin ETFs and just the amount of progress, if you want to call it that Bitcoin has made into the mainstream, and they're still skeptical, still unwilling to even put 1% of their savings into it. These people are not going to make the switch until there's a FOMO situation. And so I guess the point is, as nice as it sounds to say, oh, everyone's just going to get it, and it would be so cool if we can all just buy it at a low price and the plebs win. Not everyone's going to win in this transition, and the people who are curious and brave are going to benefit more, and I don't see a problem with that. But I've often tweeted that FOMO is adoption and adoption is FOMO, and I actually really mean that for the normie brain, that they're really not going to buy it until they're either forced to or their investment advisor explicitly tells them to, because they just need an authority in their life. They need someone to tell them what to do. They're not the type of person that's going to go out on the frontier of finance. And
Yeah.
so for me, it's NGU is what is going to bring people in. Um, so I just thought I'd throw that out there. I've done a lot of thinking on that because I think education is very important in Bitcoin. But and I've brought some converts along the way, and I it's my favorite topic. So my wife like hates going to dinner with me because it's like it always circles back to that. But it's for me, I love it because it's like I love this like uh, revolutionary thing that I believe is going to make the world a better place. And it's like I see something that I wish I could take like the thousands of hours I've spent learning about this topic, and I could put it in a bottle and I could just have someone drink it, right? And just have it click for them. Because I know that it would be better for them. I know that they'll be able to retire earlier. I know that they'll be able to preserve their wealth better, that their family will be more secure. But there's just some people that they cannot, they just, their brain is not wired in a way that they are going to be able to digest this before it's mainstream. And so that is just it's there's certain injustices in life. You're either born pretty or you're not. And for us, we were
I'm pretty.
fortunate we were fortunate to uh be born with
Ken,
brains that were able to
we're gonna
grok
gank
this.
the
But
soapbox from under
yeah,
you
yeah,
here in a second. No,
no
you.
problem.
I don't know.
That's my
So
thought.
far, I'll steal this analogy from Pubby. So far, your TED Talk is right up there with Justin's for TED Talk of the day, because those are just spitting fire, man. Like you made so many amazing points. I was trying to work Lou, or no, it was PU from across the pond into this, but I wanted to try to at least touch on a couple of the points that you made because you made some amazing points. I think we all could and we all do when we're in certain circles. Just we could just talk for hours about Bitcoin, and I can clear a room out too. But we love doing this because we're all passionate about Bitcoin. What you were talking about when you were talking about adoption, it's like the collective will of people decide what is going to be used as, store of value. And, back in the day when you were talking about things like gold being adopted, that process was so long because the world was separated, like we didn't have all the technology and the ways like we're in such a tiny little world right now, and this adoption, I haven't like researched this personally, but I would venture to say that the adoption rate of Bitcoin is like hockey stick compared to the adoption rate of any other unit of value, including gold or anything else. Just because the world is so small, and just because this value unit is like far superior to anything we've ever had in mankind. I'm probably understating it even to like I really think it's right up there with the wheel and fire and like just things that are going to make extreme changes in a positive way for mankind. So just wanted to, before I pass it over to PU from across the pond, just wanted to sign off on a lot of the stuff you were saying. It was such a great speech, man. I didn't mean to gank you because you were just on a roll and it sounded amazing, but I was just trying to work some more speakers in here. I know
Yeah, no sweat.
Dark came up too, and no, it's good stuff, man.
I got it
Like
all out. I
Justin,
got it
just
all out. Thanks.
yeah, yeah, spitting fire like Justin, man. Love it. PU, how are you? How's the weather across the pond?
What's up, Lauren? Yeah,
Awesome.
it's early February. It's pretty shitty. Just, it's nearly dark. I'm just out walking the dog, and I was listening to Justin about 10 minutes ago, and look, Justin's an OG, and I'm a humble pleb, and we defer to you guys quite a lot. But I was kind of conflicted, not necessarily what he said, but how he said it, and of course, it's important to study Bitcoin, and of course, it's important to hold it in cold storage, right? Absolutely, 100%. But sometimes the whole number go up thing is kind of like, is kind of talked about like it's a dirty word or a dirty phrase. I hate to tell you this, but there are a lot of people. I would say probably the majority of people we're thinking about Bitcoin just becoming more important to the world. People are investing their futures in it, right? It kind of is about that. Yes, the self-sovereignty. Of course, that's the first place you have to start. But we do want it to go up. So I guess there's just a conflict there, right? you know, we're talking about the government and, you know, all of the stuff that's happening to Bitcoin at the moment, some of which is negative, some of which is positive. You know, plebs like me, we are hoping, right, that this is all going to drive adoption and it is going to drive number go up because we want our futures to be more secure.
Justin, are you gonna field that one? Because it was kind of more directed at you. I mean, you're 100% correct. I think the vast majority of even Bitcoin maxis are, you know, even if they say otherwise, are more interested in NGU than anything. So, I mean, I struggle with that. I'm like, woohoo! Not gonna have to work again.
Yeah,
Woohoo!
and
Getting a new
look,
car. So you're
I'm
right.
I'm doing it right. You know, I'm Bitcoin only. I'm, you know, hodling like mad. You know, stuffing as much into it as I can.
Yeah,
All of the right things. But at the end of the day, you know, it's not a bad thing to want it to go
yeah.
up.
No, 100%.
But yeah,
Oh, here's a
number
number
go
go up
up
guy
is
right now. Luke, hey, you always talk about the price. We give you a hard time about it, but I think you don't talk about it as much as we give you a hard time about it. Go ahead, Luke.
no, I don't. But I mean, number go up is freedom go up. I mean, they're pretty similar. I get not wanting to have the government adopt it so quick and be like, government pump my bags, this and that. But I think it's fine to. I mean, nobody's buying a stable coin and putting their life savings in a stable coin. So I think it's fine. But yeah, the when it gets weird is like wanting you're just like waking up every day like government, please pump my bags. That gets a little bit cringy,
Yeah, I'm not quite sure
disgusting.
exactly what I said, but yeah, I pretty
Yeah,
much agree with you. But yeah, what makes me sick is these Washington sewer rats standing at a podium as we applaud them because they've deigned to mention Bitcoin, and that's all we need. And we're checking the price, and as these clowns who don't give a shit about Bitcoin, and the last thing they want to do is for us to somehow escape from what was really foisted upon us with no vote in 1913. That's what makes me sick. So I don't have a problem. Of course, I want it to go up, but so I'm not sure exactly what I said. But in general, I agree with you. It's just that relying on these people who are not Bitcoiners and who do not support Bitcoin in any way and are paid to say what they say. I guess that's where I'm struggling.
Hey, what do you guys think about like at what point does it just become like everyone is pro Bitcoin? Like I'm pro technology. When does that point come? Because
When
like
you
this
say Luke, when
bipartisan
you say
thing.
everyone, do you mean in the whole world, the United States?
No, no, no. It like within our country and people pushing back against Bitcoiners and debanking people. Like when is it going to be just kind of normal and everyone's for the technology and realizes it's a net good for society? Do you,
Never.
like never,
Yeah, I don't. There will
never
always be
because
holdouts.
because
Even if the majority does, I think there will always be naysayers, and there will always be people. Even if it's 1% or less, there will always be that person
They're going
that
to
is fighting
absolutely
so it's
hate
like
us, man. Just think about
for
that. We're going
sure.
to be hated. And
so it's just like people wanting to censor speech still.
Right. Yeah. There's always
It's
the yin
just
to the yang, as
there's
Cam said. Yeah.
But I guess I meant too is when do you think it's already
Luke, there
untenable
is
to be
maybe
against
to
this?
answer your question, there is a point at which you hit a percent. I forgot what it is. It's not actually that big, where the folks that Cam was describing who don't understand what the hell is going on just get swept into the fray just because there's no other way. So maybe that's what you're trying to allude to. And I believe that's a small number,
I thought it was
like around.
10%. Isn't it
Yeah,
10?
right, exactly,
Yeah,
right around
10 I think.
10%. Yeah, so once an adoption curve hits that kind of thing, no matter what it is, traditionally, like, we're even talking technology or whatever else, the masses come sweeping in and they'll just start using the technology. Once again, going back to what Cam said, not even having the slightest clue of what is lying underneath of it, they're just using it. Kind of like the average Joe doesn't understand our monetary system and we just use it. So I think, once we hit that 10% or whatever that number is, then I think that's what question you're asking, Luke. Am I?
A- and 10%, like, you, if you're trying to get elected, you cannot be against something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Viger. How do you pronounce it? Sorry, I've been slaughtering names. I've said Oz and Haas and
Yeah,
Raz.
I thought it was a little bit cool because I'm from Norway, so I guess it's a bit
Ah,
different. But I
yeah.
play
So how do you say your name?
it's Veigar. Veigar.
Vegar. Vegar.
Yeah,
How are you?
Veigar. I'm good. I'm good. It's quite late here, Friday night, and I'm
All
just
right, late
cooking
on a
some food
Friday
for
night.
the
You're on
family.
a Bitcoin space, huh? Nice.
Yeah,
Like
and
it.
you guys have no idea how lucky you are to sit and discuss the future and the future of America. And you probably guys know that Norway is kind of been one of the richest countries in the world. We have the biggest wealth fund. We have so much oil and gas, and we are basically losing everything over here because we are becoming communistic. The whole government is just blowing up. We are at 70% now on the government. And the
That's
government
nuts.
now is working to ban Bitcoin mining
No way. I
because
hadn't heard that.
it's really crazy for us because every month we buy $300 million, we transfer it to dollar from the Norwegian kroner to buy stocks and to buy everything. We kind of like we own 2% of MicroStrategy now. But if we just started, for example, with mining, with all the gas we have, and not transferring the Norwegian kroner to dollar, we would be in heaven here. But we are living two separate worlds now because the media in Norway is really bought. Every day they're being paid to talk trash about Trump and Musk. And I think we are maybe just 5% that realize the media. And because we grew up only with a couple of channels, they raised us. So we are so brainwashed that we have no idea ourselves, just like North Korea and China. And this bubble is just, you guys are talking about AI, Bitcoin, and what are you going to do in the future? Well, we are having like this, the plastic screw thing that you have on top of a bottle. You can't detach it from the bottle. That is what we are doing in Norway to save the environment. We believe that we are going to save the world in a way. And we are just looking at you, the newspaper, and everyone is just saying that, what the fuck are you guys doing over there? We don't understand. You're crazy. And you have people on the street just believe that they actually know more about American politics than you guys. And that you guys will wake up one day and realize how stupid you guys are. You know what I mean? Imagine that arrogance
Yeah,
that we
I
are
think
living
that
in.
I think, we hear things over in here too about how wonderful you guys have it with socialized medicine and just all this
Yeah,
other stuff. But I think we're at risk here of false narratives as well, because it seems like that's what you guys are getting fed there is just a whole bunch of propaganda, and it's really hard for people to sort out the truth when you're just pumped so much misinformation. I think I
yeah.
see that even I grew up in Canada, and it's
Oh,
sad
yeah,
for me
true.
to see,
Okay.
yeah, that the media in Canada is run by the government, and so they get to dictate all the headlines to the people, and the people start buying it up. So
Yeah,
it's really sad to see. I really want humanity to focus on the truth, not being
yeah.
right, not forcing their opinion down somebody else's throat, but to actually find the truth. And it's rare in
Mm.
today's day and age. So I think Bitcoin can help do that. It's like the truth serum. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
know.
I feel sorry for you. Plus, you're freezing your ass off over there, and
Oh
it's
shit, it's cold and dark here now. You guys have no idea. But for
no,
me,
northern BC is
X was a
freezing right now
savior.
too. It's like 30 below. So yeah,
Yeah, that's not too bad.
yeah,
No,
I'm good.
I just want to say that I just want to give my 2 cents.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's great to hear you weighing in on that. Hey, if you guys
I will
want to
move
talk,
down. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you. Thanks for sharing, sir. It was great to hear a perspective from Norway, and it's kind of sad. I didn't realize it was that bad over there. So it's kind
No,
of crappy.
let's see.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Hopefully, Bitcoin can help start changing humanity overall across the whole globe. So
Uh,
Pause.
It
I
looks like a
mean,
long way for Europe, EU.
pause.
Okay, see you guys.
See you later.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in quickly on the Norway thing. I had a friend from Libya, and he said to me, the whole country's communist. And I thought, how's that even possible? Well, people don't want to work because the government's giving them oil money, lots of money, like thousands of dollars a week. So what's your incentive to work, right? And I think that's what's happening with Norway to a large degree. It's funny because they push the climate stuff, but they export tons of petroleum, right? And that kind of carries me back into the thought of a centralized resource, right? When you've got oil coming out of the ground through a centralized entity, right? A group of you know 1,000 people or something are managing that, and they're redistributing the cash. They can go and sort of control the narratives and things like that. And I think the good thing about Bitcoin is that it is decentralized and nobody kind of owns the well, right? Nobody's got centralized sort of rights to it, and nobody can sort of decide who gets what. And that also kind of brings me back to these strategic reserves that everybody's trying to build up. I think for the short time, it's inevitable game theory that there's going to be states that are accumulating Bitcoin, nation states. But I just think like 30 years down the line, there's going to be some shady politician that's going to say, "Hey, we need to sell a little bit of Bitcoin to help the poor," or like to do a little communism. So it's going to come back and bite us, until it's fully distributed. And I don't know, going further down that rabbit hole, I think that, instead of the government buying Bitcoin that they're going to hold over our heads later, it'd be better if they just kind of did the 30-year mortgages like they do right now for homes, so that everybody could just buy Bitcoin and get it to as many people in the populace as possible, rather than having sort of a centralized, uh, you know, allocation of a resource that everybody wants. So anyway.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's probably the only way that I could see the alignment of incentives where it actually is seeking truth and good for humanity versus what I see now, which is with a corrupted money supply, it's so adulterated and just messed up that that's where we get all of these misinformation and we're so far off, people don't even know what the hell to think anymore, so it's like, and they're fighting each other and doubling down over stupidity when in actuality we're just going off of what, it's so difficult. You have to have this eclectic view where you just take tidbits of data from all over these different sources to really formulate an opinion, because you have so many things that are contrary. You have what is referred to as scientific studies to support one side of something, and then another set of scientific stuff that is completely contrary to that. So it just makes trying to find the truth extremely difficult when we were taught that money was like solid and hard and it was US dollars, and that science was facts. And and now we're in an illusion almost when we can't even be fed the truth. So yeah, it's making the world an interesting place in a bad way, and the only hope that I see for fixing this is what you guys are referring to, uh, Bitcoin. Uh, I do want to get to Darkside too, because I've been getting a lot of messages about Darkside, and we'll
Has
go here.
Darkside been saying things
Justin.
again, Lauren?
Well, not like you, sir. It's different things, but I just wanted to make sure we'd cleared up everything we wanted to on any of these topics, from adoption rates and price and the bill in Utah and all that stuff, because I think once we switch over to dark side, we might take a 180-degree turn, and there's no going back.
Hey, Lauren, right before you go to
Yeah.
Darkside, yeah, so everybody just start noticing more and more that very subtly from the Washington crypto lobby, you're going to be hearing about stable coins and digital dollars, Tether, and the importance of holding those. There'll be a lot of Bitcoin marketing, but notice more and more it's about digitalizing the dollar and holding stable coins and the importance of these and what they've done. So notice that more and more. But
Justin, yeah, we always say that Bitcoin is the Trojan horse, but what if, they're onto us and they are actually sneaking a second Trojan horse inside of our Trojan horse, and Shazam, one day we have a central bank digital currency thanks to all these bills because the language was so vague on them that they were able to slip in another thing in, a back door. So I'm 100% with you on these things. I think we need to be very cautious and not applaud all these things, but we need to be extremely meticulous in going through these things. And getting guys like Joe on board and saying like, "Hey, I looked at this legal language here, and this is the gateway to a CBDC." So the CBDC, in my estimation, would be a death sentence on any society. I think that our buddy from Norway is describing would be child's play compared to CBDC. I think CBDC would be just like all of us would be in prison. You might as well just be wearing that ankle bracelet and being monitored on everything you do. It's like, nope, you were naughty. No ocean for you today. Oh, nope, you were naughty. Your credits won't let you buy any dessert. And oh, hey, you got to quickly hurry up and purchase your things because your credits are going to expire at the end of the month. Like, I do not want to live in a world like that, nor do I want my descendants to live in a world like that. That is complete and utter slavery. That makes feudalism look good. So 100% agree with you, and I think we have to be vigilant and careful that we don't allow that kind of crap to into our legal system and
yeah,
into our
and so also
financial
be
education.
careful with the tropes that are widely accepted amongst Bitcoiners, and it sounds great. For instance, Bitcoin is for everyone. Everything is good for Bitcoin. Bitcoin has already won. It's evil and sinister what they're doing, but adoption. Be careful of stuff like that and notice who's saying it. You'll never get the real fundamental Bitcoin maximalists will never say stuff like that because they know it's not true. Also, be careful of that today 9 billion human beings could come right over onto Bitcoin, and the technology is there and the network. We could just scale right up and we could use this as a medium of exchange. It's not true. It can't happen. The adoption is not necessarily good, and the network is not ready for it. Not everything is good for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not for everyone. We repeat these things, but they're not true. And when you study Bitcoin, you realize it's not true, and then you start noticing the cadre that keeps pushing these things, and they're not Bitcoiners. They're controlling the way we think with these
Yes.
things.
Yeah, absolutely. Cadre. I like it. No, it's 100% truth, man. I think we need to be aware, stay on our toes. Roz.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a note that stable coins are a way for them to export inflation. So I think the dollar would be a lot lower if it wasn't for things like Tether, because basically Tether is making it so that every time they print a bunch of dollars, some guy in Zimbabwe can go and buy himself a can of Coke with our dollars instead of whatever Zimbabwean currency they're using at this time. And they've got something like 400 million users worldwide. And meanwhile, they're buying U.S. Treasuries. So basically, it's a way for them to kick the can down the road with all their inflation. So I think when they're looking at stable coins, they're looking at, hey, how do we not default and not get in trouble during our political term, and instead do it, 5, 10 years down the line. So in the end, they're just creating more inflation, right? And that's good for Bitcoin. However, I do want to second everything that Lauren said about CBDCs. So definitely do not want to have them sort of start telling us what we can buy and so forth. Hopefully, if they do stable coins, they kind of keep a competition going where they have less control, less KYC, AML, that they can control just due to the way it's so spread out, and focus on, it's going to be a fight for all currencies, and maybe the dollar will win out at first, and some Mongolian currency will lose out because of this, which is what they're hoping. But in the end, years down the line, I think Bitcoin's going to definitely win this game, and even at the cost of the dollar.
Okie dokie. I think oh yeah. Tuniver. Good morning or afternoon or whatever it is over there. You're in Thailand, correct?
Hi, yes, yes. Midnight here.
Midnight in Thailand, and you're up on a Bitcoin space. Nice. I like your
Yeah.
conviction.
Oh man, I have to
What's the report
list.
from the ground in Thailand?
Oh yeah. So um, I have two things. So first thing, just want to let you know that on my Facebook and on social media on X everywhere, people crazy about what's happened in Washington D.C. about Trump and his team and things like that. They try to magnify the try to like how to say see the small thing when the politician talk about Bitcoin in just 1 second and make it like breaking news. They mention about Bitcoin, they blah 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 blah, and every media is like crazy. But I have one guy here. He's Justin. Justin always a guy who like again, like go opposite direction. But for me, I think about the same way because last time I stay up very late to listen to the crypto czar about everything that they want to say, and mostly they talk about um, stable coins. And for me, after that, you know what I mean? I feel like the whole team, I feel like this is the ICO era again. Because if anybody here living through the ICO time,
Sorry, I didn't mean to
we
push the thumbs down. I agree with you. Sorry.
yeah
Go
we
on.
had so many people tend to be like, I am an advisor of something and I am going to change something, I am going to use something which can be better than Bitcoin, and I feel like
Yeah,
they are trying
that's
to
a
do
good
this.
point. I agree.
Yeah.
No, keep
Yeah.
going. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I accidentally fat fingered the thumbs down and didn't mean to do that. So no,
Okay.
that's a great analogy. Go ahead.
Yeah. And one more thing, is I need to ask you, is it okay if I talk about like fundraising project here?
If you keep it extremely brief, because we're gonna get to Darkside's got his hand up too. So
Yeah. Okay.
super brief. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so soon we have. Okay, I start with how to say. Okay, I met with some guy in surfing international Thailand international team, and then we talk, and then he talked with me like, oh man, we not able to go
Hey,
to
Conifer, why don't
yep,
we condense it down and then you put something up in the nest and then people can go check it out. So it sounds like you got a surfer and you're trying to sponsor him somewhere. And
yeah.
Luke's in on this kind of stuff because he's a surfer guy. So yeah, if you want to help sponsor a surfer, put all the information and then just post it up in the nest or put it in the comment thing down below and then I'll post it if you can. If
Sure,
not, throw it up there and we'll give it our attention. How's that sound?
sure.
Dark
Thank
side,
you,
sir.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Dark side,
How you doing,
how are you?
brother? I'm doing
You know,
great,
I'm
man.
doing well. Yeah, so we're gonna talk about some stuff, but I'm assuming you wanted to reference some of the topics thus far. Am I correct?
Yeah, well, first of all, I agree with Justin. Like I'm on Justin's
Yeah,
team.
for sure. Me too.
Uh,
Yep.
I don't really give two shits about the U.S. government in getting involved in Bitcoin. Governments will find Bitcoin out of necessity, not out of desire. So
Yeah, hey, Derek, I think some of the comments I'm reading and DMs I'm getting too is uh we don't want to say we're just basically saying, hey, be careful of this. We're not saying like, hey, it's not cool that our bags are being pumped because we're just people too and we like to see our net worth go up. So we're not against this. And yes, the number go up is a sign of adoption, like people are buying Bitcoin. So we're not saying this is a bad thing. All we're saying is like, hey, it would be wonderful if the Bitcoin was dispersed amongst all the peoples of the world versus, the governments of the world and banking institutions of the world. That's all we're saying. I think that's just, trying to define it and not say like this is a bad thing and blah blah blah. And Justin really makes great points about, our own politicians and stuff. So I just wanted to throw that little caveat in there just based upon what feedback I'm getting in DMs and stuff.
yeah, you had me at hello, right?
Sorry,
Look,
and then we got Fred too, so I wouldn't mind talking to Fred before we start hashing out your
Yeah,
other
hey
stuff.
guys, I just want to
All right,
point out
Fred.
that MicroStrategy STRK is trading up to 87. I don't know if anybody's picked up on that, but it's been almost a 10% move since the issuance.
I think Asteroid probably would, because I think Asteroid is into all that. I don't know who else, anybody else in here messing around with that stuff.
We haven't checked this morning. Is Asteroid bullish?
Fred, are you still down at some point to like just air everything out on like spaces or something and just hash out our whole crazy week of formerly Bitcoin first and whatever else?
Yeah,
You
no,
still down to
I'm
do that
down. I
sometime?
mean, look,
Yeah,
I'm still a Bitcoiner. Always have been a Bitcoiner, and not selling any Bitcoin, not doing
yeah.
anything. That's me.
Yeah, I mean, you and I haven't really had any conversations. I think we did
No.
a text exchange just one point. But none of this is personal. I've always liked you. You seem like a great guy. You were the catalyst that really got the fraternity of people together, and that community
Listen,
was
I mean,
amazing.
I'm thrilled, man. I'm thrilled that
Yeah,
there's
yeah, yeah.
lots of Bitcoiner groups that are and
100%.
in and offline, right? Which is also cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
No, go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. No, the only thing I would say is, you know, I think, where some people may disagree or may not is I definitely feel like we're going to have more of a, you know, there will be crypto in this administration and not just Bitcoin. Now, do I hold any of that? No. Do I think it's good for Bitcoin? Well, fighting fighting for Bitcoin only at this point is, I'd say, it's sort of like as productive as banging your head against the wall. I don't think it's going to help when the president himself has a Trump coin.
How much
um,
time you got, Fred?
what do you mean, how much time do I have?
Well, I mean, we could just like open this can of worms right now and just start from the beginning and just roll through and get to this point of altcoins in government and whatnot.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, that's just, I'll just say that's where
Save that for another day.
my point is, I'm not talking about what should happen. I'm talking about what I think will happen, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So look, my view is, this is what is going to go down, and what I think is going to go down. And one thing I heard from that David Sachs conference was that the number one priority is the stablecoin bill, right? And I think that's what was really significant, because what I think this stablecoin stuff is like really underappreciated, but I think it really has tremendous implications, because I think if we get, and not if, when we get our stablecoin bill, because there will be one, it's a bipartisan thing. There's Democratic support for it. Even Fed people have sort of said, we're kind of okay with stablecoins. If it means more demand for the dollar, we like it. So I think stablecoins are going to be the first priority of this administration. And I think that's going to
Fred,
be
Fred,
ultimately really good for Bitcoin, because it's going to be more people self-custodying, more people holding these things, more merchants accepting it, etc. Dark, go ahead.
hang on. Sorry, give me a second. Hey, Fred, I think maybe with especially the Bitcoin maximalist crowd, just based upon the number of DMs and reactions I'm getting, maybe you have a little bit of reputation damage control to do before you're gonna get your message across. Just because I think you dropped some bombs with the meme coin things and the altcoin things and whatnot. So, I mean, I think I understand where you're coming from, but again, even with me, I have some Fred bomb damage where, I don't really feel like we're good to just like pretend everything is fine because we haven't talked for 2 weeks and then just come and just, you know, uh like just chit chat like nothing happened. So, I mean, I
Well,
think we really need to
I'm
clear
not.
the air before we go ahead.
Well, yeah. Look, I'm not trying to chit chat. I'm saying, what do I think has changed for me? My point of view is 2 weeks ago, I was sort of on saying, you know, all meme coins are bad, all this stuff's bad, and this is we have to fight all this. Now, you know, after this sort of inadvertent exposure to this world, and I've come to the conclusion that this world, and I'm not saying meme coins, but I'm saying the crypto world of yesteryear is coming back. Okay. Now, it's not a judgment thing. I'm not saying it's all good. I think part of it is good. I think part of the like, for example, having stable coins being accepted in Starbucks or something, I think that's something that we should all like to have. Now, so that's what I think. And
Fred, I think you're just dodging what I'm trying to say, which is like we need to get to the root of these things because in order for your message to get across, especially to, you know, Bitcoin maximalists, I think, you know, like we have to at least address the things that
yeah,
happen because
again,
I think you're not wrong, probably, because oftentimes
okay,
we call
so
these
yeah,
altcoin
so look,
cycles. And
so
yeah.
what I'm saying is this: you know, I mean, I can go over the facts of this thing. The facts are pretty, you know, we've gone over them 10 times. But the fact of this thing is, I didn't intend to create really any kind of coin like this. I didn't intend to create stupid coin as a coin to make money. In fact, you know, I basically own very little of this stupid coin, even though it hit a $50 million market cap, right? And I wasn't aware of this stuff. I think I understand it better now, this whole meme coin stuff. I didn't really understand it. But you know, I'm sort of not completely anti it right now. And
Fred, I think
yeah,
you've lost a lot of the Bitcoin maxi community, and I think that
yeah,
they have
no,
a
I
good
mean, look, no
reason
doubt.
because
Look,
and like you
Lauren.
said, like, hey, I lost this many followers, but I gained this many more, and it's like I'm not going to argue that at some point, somewhere along the line, some altcoin or anything else is going to be, you know, have use. My point is, hey, man, stay on the mission of Bitcoin. Like until we get that into reality and across the finish line, like all these other things are distracting and actually taking time, effort, and energy away from the goal. So I think that's my biggest struggle.
Okay, so most of these people that are coming into this ecosystem right now, they're coming in through now these Trump coins and other stuff. So I don't think, okay, now I'm not saying they should be, but I'm just telling you that's what's happening. Okay. So, you know, and I think we're going to see a lot of other stuff happen. So, you know, we can have pure Bitcoin only spaces. We can do that. And, you know, I can be part of those or not. You know, we can have 10 of them. And that's fine. And we can talk about Bitcoin topics that are relevant to Bitcoiners, of which I am one. You know, I have 80% of my net worth in Bitcoin, you know. And you know, that's kind of one thing you can do, right?
Fred,
Now,
you said you were 90 at one point,
but you
though.
know, there's no one committee of people that has an opinion here. There's, you know, there's different shades of this. There's pure
Yeah,
people
Fred, you know what I think really was the community or fraternity of people, like it kind of hurt because it felt like you didn't really respond.
well, here,
I mean, you
okay,
don't
wait,
owe me
Lauren,
anything. Yeah, yeah,
Lauren,
go ahead. Go ahead.
okay. So
I think I'm
I
not
didn't
talking just for
respond.
me
I was
either, so I think I'm
getting
just giving you some honest
no,
feedback.
no.
So
I
I'm not
look,
trying to make this personal at all. So
but,
yeah,
yeah,
no, I
but
think you're.
it
Go
was,
ahead.
Lauren. It was personal
Go ahead.
because you know I spent, I don't know, a week just dealing with just complete and utter insults and stuff for, you know, just and so my reaction to this is I push back to it and I just say, oh yeah, right, fine. You know, I'll do meme tank. That's my reaction to
So
it
Fred, are
because
you saying like you were actually hurt too? Like you had your feelings hurt as well?
of
Is that
course,
a
I
fair
mean,
assessment?
listen, man, I'm like, you know, like to me, I feel like, when I have spent as much time, I would say educating or just, evangelizing Bitcoin as I have, and then randomly, it's just from a joke type thing, get into this wall of hate. It's sort of like my view is, well, okay, great. If that's the crowd that this particular crowd, and it's not everybody who follows me, it's just a specific crowd. If that's the way they want to play, well, that's fine. I don't really, I don't need
So
to.
you doubled down and just kind of gave an FU kind of to that, like if that's
When I say
the
"fu," it's sort of like
yeah,
my viewpoint is I'm not upset at you or anybody else,
sure.
because I think that, look, I do think you have a lot of point that uh, the Bitcoin message in certain circles is best left just to discussing Bitcoin, and and probably no other coin should ever enter those discussions, right? But then I think we've seen this thing drift into this MSTR stuff, which I don't even I think is pretty far away from where Bitcoin, my view of what Bitcoin is, right? When we're talking about MNAV ratios and like option trading on MSTR, what does that have to do with like sound money? Really, it doesn't. So, from my perspective,
I
the
agree with you on that one, but I don't
well,
think
okay,
it's
but I'm
kind
just
of
saying,
like
like we drifted into this thing from 4 months ago, where basically the entire conversation moved into MSTR, right? And then all the weird shit that the equity stuff, the fact that we're now talking about one guy who controls this entire stash of Bitcoin, and we're all no. I mean, that is not, to me, what Bitcoin's about, in my opinion. I'm not saying it's not interesting. It's interesting, but it's not part of the core Bitcoin message, in my opinion.
totally agree.
Anyway,
Justin has a
so then we went to that. To then it's like, hey, we should be super happy that we got Trump elected, and now now we have Trump coin. Oh, well, that's not so bad. And then half the people are like, well, I bought some just because of a joke and stuff. And I'm like, okay, so you bought Trump. Now, we first went into MSTR stuff, right? Then we went to options on MSTR. Then we went into full on trading degen MSTR options. To then we're now sort of okay with Trump coin. And then the minute kind of that, inadvertently we create stupid coin, it's like, oh, shame on Fred. And I'm just like, all I'm saying is I call hypocrisy on like this movement away from the the fundamentals of Bitcoin, which are self custody, and what is Bitcoin as a sort of the economic argument for Bitcoin as sound money. And
hey Fred, I totally
those
agree with you, but
discussions
I think
to
that
me is like
one
where
of
I
the
came from, and I still am interested in those discussions. But they have nothing to do with like all 90% of
hey
this
Fred,
other.
you're 100% correct on those things, but one of the things about Bitcoin is personal responsibility, and it seems like you're deflecting here and not taking personal responsibility back because I'm willing to say if I screwed up and said, hey man, if I hurt you in any way, like I can apologize and own it. And I think what really I'm getting at is just because Trump released the coin, which I think is a whole bunch of crap, doesn't, authorize, somebody in my community to do it. And then the way that it rolled out, same with the MSTR thing. I think you're bang on right there too. But I think there are adult ways to handle these things. And I think my point is like, I think we would have been better off to actually just hash this all out and say, what the hell is going on here
I'm
versus,
I'm
go
I'm
ahead.
I'm willing to hash it out over time, and
Sure.
we're hashing it
Yeah.
out now. Like we're
Yeah, we
hashing.
are. Yes, sir. Yeah.
I
Yep.
mean,
Yep.
this is a hash, So,
This is a
but
hash.
listen, this stuff doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen on,
Hey,
and I
Fred,
don't.
can
And
I
by the way,
rewind all the way?
I don't take orders from Wayne Vaughn. So when Wayne Fogg,
Well, I wanted to rewind all the way back to there. So it's interesting that you say that because Wayne went on and gave his version of how everything went down, and it was a complete and utter crock of shit. What happened was uh, Fred just randomly started these spaces, and we all just started kind of hanging out on these spaces. and everything organically just grew around, and it just became this fraternity of people that really dug on talking about Bitcoin and all this other stuff. And then next thing, like, we were all stoked because we were going to get to see each other in Santa Monica because Swan was hosting the annual, Bitcoin thing that they always did, the Pacific Bitcoin event. And then all of a sudden, the whole Tether thing, and they got rugged, and they had to lay off all these people, and it canceled that event. So, Fred, you even credited me on the spaces a few times, saying like, "Yeah, Lauren thought, hey, maybe we do our own event because we were disappointed because we couldn't all go to this, event and meet up." So
Yeah.
that was how that event started, and then we just kept planning it. And then next thing you know, you and Ben were like, "Cool, we found this cool venue," and you put up a little thing. So that is 100% how, the whole Bitcoin first and the event started. It was nothing at all the way Wayne said it was. And I think that this whole Wayne element
Well, here's
really
the thing.
helped to,
Listen.
yeah,
Look, the way Wayne, I enjoyed Wayne's commentary early on the coin, not in the coin, in the space, in the general space, meaning, and I thought, look, he's been around Bitcoin longer than I have, longer than most of us have, to be honest, right? He was there for I think 2011, right? And so I was like, look, I think, as like kind of an OG guy, he'd be a great person to bring in some people into, that conference, which I thought was a good idea, and I think you were pretty much the first person, I think, who said, hey, we should have a conference. You were mentioning Tahoe at the time. I was like, oh, okay. Uh, but actually, he didn't really do anything. For Wayne did not do anything to organize that. Didn't invite anybody. Didn't do anything, and we busted our ass, and we got all these volunteers and everything, and we put that whole conference together, and it was great, and it really worked out great, right? So the whole conference went great, but then basically, and by the way, the person who did most work on the conference was Ben, right? Ben Sigmund. So, he's sort of like, yeah. And, made zero money on it, nothing, put in hundreds of hours of work on that conference. And then, it's, kind of like, Wayne sort of kind of stepped in and said, well, great, this is kind of Fred and me doing this. I was like, well, okay, fine. It's like, Ben was like, I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me. I don't need any recognition. So I'm like, okay. So, that's kind of how this thing went down. And then it kind of turned into this kind of talk show format, which, I didn't really like that much, to be honest. I didn't think it was like, and I kind of liked the free form that we had before, the free form, anything goes, anytime goes, etc. Although I did kind of want to put some structure to it, like having a website and stuff, but none of that got, and Ben was like, yeah, sure, I'll put a website up. And then we showed the website to Wayne, and Wayne's like, no, we need to have a professional thing designed. We need to go to an agency and all this stuff. And I was like, oh my God, this is never going to happen. Right. And so, I think with these kind of things, they either work organically or they don't. And if you try to structure it too much, it fails. And I think that's what happened here. And, we were kind of dying under the structure. Right. And I think, one of the things, I think this probably Bitcoin First would probably have not have worked in that format. And I don't think it's going to work in the current format because I think it's just too rigid of a structure. Now, I think probably me creating this like joke thing, SAB 121 meme coin, which I literally created in 5 seconds because I wanted to understand how these meme coins work. That thing led me to like, okay, well, if everybody's going to be this pissy about things, I'm just going to go say, you do your thing, whatever, and we'll all own Bitcoin, and that's fine. We'll all get richer, and that's fine. And you guys want to do that? That's fine. But I am not going to. I'm not. I got really offended by Wayne creating a space called Fred Fucked Up, because to me, like, if I create a space called Lauren is a Dick, and I have 500 people in it, you're not going to really want to be friends with me anymore. You know what I mean? And that to me was just like, wow, you really crossed the line, Wayne. not only I built up a lot of this stuff, I built the community, I got everybody together, and then he's like, well, it was a book launch party. And it's like in a very derogatory way. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
that was BS.
I mean,
Yeah.
come on, man. It's like, okay, you bought 4 copies of the book. You want to burn them? Go burn them. I don't care, man. Like, it's like, I spent a lot of time on that book and a lot of energy. And, and I didn't do it to sell meme coins, right? I did it because I love Bitcoin. That's
Hey,
why
Fred,
I
can I
wrote the
weigh in
book.
with my perspective?
Sure.
I'll say the same
Yeah.
thing to you that I've said in private. So I'm not saying one thing to one group and one to another. Yes, absolutely. You created the community pretty much single-handedly and set up the format. And the big Bitcoin book was a big deal in Bitcoin. And I think you get full credit for being 100% transparent about everything. And to play devil's advocate, I've bristled at the notion that you're a scammer because I don't quite see how you can be a scammer if you're 100% upfront about it. And listen, I'm the last one that's going to cry over anybody who says they lost something on meme coins. Where it kind of where I think the emotion I feel is disappointment because you had that momentum from the book, and I think you could have written another one, and I think you could have gone down as a Bitcoin legend, and maybe all of the toxicity that you maybe rightly faced for some of what you did or confusion or whatever. And I saw just hundreds of insults that you got. So I understand that is really difficult to take. But
Well, hey, Justin, I want to say one thing about that. It's sort of like, I think one of the guys that I think is kind of a legend in our space, but very controversial, is Eric Voorhees, right? And look, a lot of Eric Voorhees got a ton of shit. Okay, why? Because he's kind of doing some tokens. He's backing Thorchain, pretty publicly. I don't know if he has any financial reason to do it. But a lot of what Eric said, I think, about kind of why, and watch us talk about why are we even here? Why are we doing this? All this stuff, to me, he's an inspiration now. And I'm more on his side of the camp than I am on, Corey Klippstein's side of the intellectually, you know what I mean? Like in terms of like, so I just think that, I do have a little bit of a change of heart in terms of, I do think Bitcoin is great. But I also think that now that it's not just the pure, most orthodox version of Bitcoin, the Bitcoin religion is, it's a sect. I'm not saying all sects are bad. It's
well,
just
here's
a
my
sect.
advice, Fred. Please, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but do not go to the point, if I could give you personal advice, of consorting with people like Udi Wertheimer. So don't fade Bitcoin, man, and come out and be disrespectful.
Yeah, well, look, I think he's a joke. I mean, Udi is a joke, right? He's like, Udi is himself a meme. I don't take him seriously, and I don't think he takes himself seriously, right? He's
Yeah,
not
he's an
saving
immoral
Bitcoin.
loser, man. He's is a direct attack on Bitcoin. That's what he's come out and said it publicly. So every possible name in the book applies to that guy. So where I'd be super disappointed is if you came out and felt like you were pushed to the opposite direction, that now you're going to start attacking Bitcoin with guys like Udi and
No.
consorting with
Look,
him.
why would I do that? Look, no. Look, first of all, I love Bitcoin, and I think Bitcoin. I really think that the value proposition of Bitcoin for for especially young people, it's fantastic, right? They should be buying Bitcoin. They should be stacking in Bitcoin. All this stuff, it's fantastic. For rich old people like me, it's good too, or you, it's still good. But look, it's a great thing,
Hey, Fred.
and I feel like we need we we people
Hey, I'm
don't
gonna
love
chime
these
in,
orthodox
buddy, and just
religions.
if we're clearing airs, I think one of my problems and why I maybe overreacted too was I kind of felt personal. It was more personal to me because I really felt like, you know, a friendship with you and stuff, and it just felt like a slight
Well,
betrayal,
yeah,
and I
but
might have.
I
Yeah,
understand,
go ahead.
Lauren, but like it's
Yeah.
sort of like, it's like when I don't know, you've been divorced what, 4 times?
Yes, sir.
You you know what happens when you get divorced? You have friends and they're friends with one of
Right.
the
Yep.
spouses and not the other one. And you get people going, well, sorry, I was friends with your wife. I can't
Yep.
really see you anymore. And so there's a little bit of that. But look, I think at the end of the day,
Sure.
we're all Bitcoiners and we will all eventually all regroup and then break up again and do all this stuff because look, we're in it for the long
I was
haul.
one
I
of
think
those
all of us
too.
are, you know,
Yeah.
and
That was a toxic
how all this
relationship.
stuff plays out, I don't know. But anyways, I kind of got to hop on something else right now, but I'll be back in the
Well, we broke
spaces
the
and we
ice,
can,
Fred.
we can
We
do
broke the
more
ice.
hashing or you can kick me out or do whatever you want. But I'll talk to you guys soon. See
Hey,
ya.
Fred, I like that we can handle this like adults and just
All
air it
right.
out. So for
Sounds
that,
good.
I definitely appreciate it. Thanks, man. Have a
Now,
great
bye.
day. Well, I don't know what to think of that, but Fred's a good guy. What Justin said was he's honest. He's not tried to rug anybody on purpose. He's not, and I'm not trying to vouch for meme coins or anything else because that is definitely a shit show rug pull fest. So I've been getting a lot of DMs that are hard to read, and I understand this is like one of those tightropes where it's difficult to walk because Fred's a human and we all make mistakes, and it seems like he's doubling down on the shitcoinery instead of just saying like, yeah, it's not a good idea. To me, it's not against the law to cheat on your spouse, and it's not against the law to go to strip clubs. But for me, my line is different. I don't want to subject my wife to any of that kind of stuff. And so I think people's lines are just in different places. And I think Fred may be one of those guys that's like, yeah, I go to the strip club. And to me, that's not okay. And I want to focus my time, effort, and energy on the separation of money from state and money from central banks and to actually advocate for love and hope for humanity going forward and not try to do anything for my personal gain and to rally around myself. So I think that is probably where my big discrepancies lie with Fred. But having said that, I think I'd be a hypocrite if I just said F that guy and he's a POS and all this other stuff because guess what? You know what? Fred's a human just like me and he deserves to be loved and cared about like everybody else. So I'm not trying to be a Fred simp or anything else because I've stated it in black and white that I think it's a bunch of BS what he's doing. But still, it's kind of cool to clear the air because he was a friend of mine, and maybe in the future he will be. But I definitely do not, in any way, shape, or form, want to say that I want to give him a platform to shill this idiocracy that is all these stupid coins.
Yeah,
So
Lauren, can I
I
say
won't say
too before you go to
yeah, yeah.
hands,
Please
man?
jump in. Yeah.
Um, Also, let's be clear. What I wanted to say before Fred kind of cut me off there was nothing has changed with Bitcoin. Fred's perception of things has changed. So Bitcoin didn't change. So it wasn't that it was Bitcoin, but now look, there's all these other million meme coins, and so now everything has changed. And maybe you should think about focusing on other things and don't focus just on Bitcoin. Nothing changed with Bitcoin, just Fred's perception did, and Fred's goals and all that. So I
Hey,
would also
Justin,
add
did you
that.
see? I didn't see the order of hands because I was really trying to get as much out
I think
with
Puncher is first.
Fred. Okay, puncher it is.
All right. I'm glad Fred came back on, and that's great. I wish he had
It
come
seems
back
like you're
on.
one of the rare voices because man, oh man, I've been getting flack in the DMs.
Yeah,
Go
and
ahead,
and
puncher.
and I wish he had come back on the next day, which in a DM, that's what I asked him to do. I said, "Look, there's got to be more to this story. Come on and tell everybody what's going on." And I didn't get a reply. So I've said it before that I try to. I'm like Darkside. I try to Bitcoin at least one person a day. Or Orange Boat, the one person a day. And when I have a bunch of people who are in that kind of space that I'm kind of trying to manage through the process, and I bring them on with Fred as, on the space with Fred as an authority, and then he goes to shitcoin, I, you know, Fred, and then by extension, me, lose some of the credibility. Like, well, what are you talking about? The guy you told me to listen to is a shitcoiner. and they don't understand the difference. And so that was disappointment. And then on top of that, how he handled it afterward, I thought was a mistake. I'm not here to badmouth Fred. I had my hand up when he was here. I'll say the same thing to his face. But, you know, that's it. I'm sure other people have other things to say.
Yeah, Puncher, you probably speak for most of us, especially
I don't know
those.
who's next either, Justin. So go ahead and keep the flow going.
I believe Bitcoin Pilot was next, if I'm not mistaken.
Hey, Jets. Yeah, I thought it was perfect. He just, distilled everything about how, it wasn't his fault and it was somebody else and it was this and it was that. And then he bounced before anybody could really say anything, at least as far as my perspective. And you guys might have a better relationship with Fred than I do, but it's it's pure immoral action.
I
And
was
what I
trying
wanted
to
to say
hold him
was,
to task and talk about personal responsibility, but he kept deflecting. So I
right.
definitely, that's
No, I know,
hilarious
and
that you
we,
say it like
this
that.
just gives him a platform to continue down the same path of like, oh, we're all Bitcoiners, we're all that, but he's still got Bitcoin Maxi in his profile, and again, it's a free country, free world, do whatever you want, like, that's what Bitcoin
Yeah, freedom
is.
first, man. I
But
agree.
you can throw
But you
Bitcoin
have great
Maxi in your
points.
stuff, and then
Yeah,
come in here and tell me that Eric Voorhees is a hero of yours, like,
yeah, that's
yeah, Eric's a legend, great. He sold what was it, Bitcoin Poker, Bitcoin, what was it, Bitcoin Dice back in the day, and like, and then he came back and he launched what was for a second a really great like atomic swap site, but then bent the knee there, and he was an enemy in the big block war. So it makes total sense that Fred's hero is Eric Voorhees because he's done stuff. And like what I love about Bitcoin is your heroes can be people that just stack Bitcoin, talk about Bitcoin, and are here for the separation of money from state. The kind of people like Fred who can't sit still and have to do something to sort of prove that they're, alive, I guess. Writing a book, launching a meme coin because, oh, I wanted to see what it was like. Okay. Then you launch another meme coin and fleece people and it turns into a pump and dump. And then, next thing you know, you're selling wizards with Udi and, getting fat in Ibiza or whatever the hell Udi's doing. And like, it's just hearing that rhetoric and not sitting here and listening to me talk about my response to it. It's fine. Like I said, you do what you want. But to claim yourself as a Bitcoin maxi and trying to educate people is nonsense. And I say that from first perspective. Last night I got a chance to go meet with Gladiator and like teach him about Bitcoin from first principles. After Doc Kruger had set him up with a DeFi
did you
wallet.
get him to hold Bitcoin, sir?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll let Tomer go, but I'd love to talk about that experience last night if you guys want to hear about it. But let Tomer do his thing, and then I'll tell you all
We
about.
might have to save it for another show just because I have an appointment, so we got to wind her down by 10:30.
Okay.
So maybe we'll just finish with this Fred stuff, and then hopefully, maybe even just send me a DM when you're able to come back on, because that would be a cool topic. I'm definitely interested in
Yeah, I
hearing about
think
it.
unfortunately Gladiators. It would be nice to have both of us on and talk about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But I think that his account is like suspended right now. It keeps having issues, so I'm not sure
Again?
when that'll
Oh,
be.
geez. Maybe you can make an anon one or something, and then get him back in here. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll shoot for next week or something.
All right, go ahead, Tomer.
Sorry, no, I got an appointment, so I need to wind her down
No
in like
worries.
10 or 15. All right,
Uh,
Summer.
I'll be real quick, and I won't repeat everything that's been said because it's kind of the same thing. I think there's there's half something here that's personal, or some fraction of it that's personal, because a lot of us can help contribute to the growth of what was Bitcoin first, and we thought we were doing it together. And so when there were a number of times when Fred held the space where he would like promote Thorchain or explore it or or talk about NFTs, that kind of bristled against us, to use the term that Justin used, we but it was one thing to have other people talk about what they were offering and to then subject it to criticism from others. And I think that when Fred launched a meme coin, it it affected us the other way. But the part that's really important to me, which is more than the personal thing, and I'm sure I can, again, exactly as Bitcoin Pilot just said, uh, still be an acquaintance with Fred, just slot him into the right compartment, which is not pure Bitcoin maximalist. But the reason that I'm actually a pure Bitcoin maximalist is I have seen over the years everyone play with all this other stuff. And the consequence is the consequence is always that they're worse off afterwards. they're either worse off afterwards because they lost a bunch of their stack and accepted that they lost their stack and learned a valuable lesson in it. Or, and this is the much more common case and the very tragic kind of case because it has a feedback loop like abuse. They've lost a lot of Bitcoin. Maybe they've lost all their Bitcoin, and they haven't learned the lesson that they should be a Bitcoiner and hold Bitcoin as a result. They're trying to use shitcoinery, altcoinery, whatever term you want to use for it, to find a way to climb back up to what they once had, or to something else. And in that consequence, they're generally trying to do it by bringing other people into the altcoin space. And meme coinery is like the worst of this kind of thing because it doesn't even have the pretense of building a valuable business for somebody else, right? It's like let's do something quick. It's going to be a zero sum game because it's going to start at zero and end back at zero very quickly. But in the interim, there will be people who gamble on it and play with it. And for the people who are playing with it for the reasons that they are, there's no long-term value being created. They're not really learning about Bitcoin. They're not self-custodying. They're not running a full Solana node or any of that stuff at all. So they're not really learning at all about this space. They're gambling in a way that they're going to lose. It's going to probably, for many of them, leave them leave them with a bad taste in their mouth for crypto, and by association, even though it's a guilt by association, a bad taste for Bitcoin. So they're not really helping, and these rationalizations don't really help. And I've seen a lot because of a project I'm working on. I've seen a lot in the last few weeks, actually, or coincidental with the same time that Fred's been going through this phase, of people who are now like who've been in Bitcoin or in crypto for as long as Wayne has, like 2011, 2012. And many of them sold all their Bitcoin when it first hit $100 or $200, or they lost it all in some kind of, swap into some other altcoin. And there's a remarkable percentage of them that haven't come back to Bitcoin. They want to. They speak favorably of Bitcoin, much in the same way as Fred just did, but they're playing all these other games. And why? Because they're desperate to get back to the position that they once were in Bitcoin. And so when people like them who've been long timers, or other people with a lot of pull and a lot of influence, encourage other people to do it, they're not into shitcoin, right? They're not doing it because they're actually interested in helping or communicating genuinely. There's a subtext, there's a subconscious effort of theirs to do what they can to get to where they believe they could have been, should have been, ought to be. It's quite explicitly at the expense of other people. Sell them altcoins, charge a commission, get them to inflate the price of altcoins with the intention at some point of getting back into Bitcoin and being clean about it. Now, I know we don't have a lot of time, so I won't go into a long attempt to analyze all the different people on this particular spectrum. But I will say, my counsel to people, and I got into Bitcoin and I lost more than half my stack trying to get involved in cloud mining and this and that. And the lesson that I learned was Bitcoins are extremely rare and extremely precious, and hold on to what you got, and don't play stupid games or you'll win stupid prizes and lose your Bitcoin.
Love it, Tomer. Know we can
Indeed.
count on you to be the voice of reason. Hey, TC.
Man, I love Tomer's takes. Tomer, thanks, man. Thanks for being the voice of I really just feel so much kindness from you. I really appreciate that about you. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there. I think you said TC, right, Justin?
Hey, yeah, no, I'm going to echo what was just said. Tomer nailed it. He said a lot of what I wanted to say. I'll just add a little bit more of just, um, the Bitcoin is the truth. You discover this when you start digging in and start trying to understand how it achieves what it achieves. It's powerful. It's it's life changing when you really find it. And what Tomer said about people not having as much Bitcoin today as they used to, that's literally the ultimate effect of all of this other stuff. What we just heard from Fred is literally the poster child example of I like Bitcoin, buy my shitcoin. I like Bitcoin, but, and there's just a lot of that goes on. And that actually gets loudest during the bull markets. because during the bull markets, there's all this capital flowing in to Bitcoin and also flowing into all these other things. And the one utility, the only utility that any of that crypto stuff outside of Bitcoin has is the ability for people to create new tokens and raise money from naive retail. That is the function of crypto. It does not have any other special use cases or capabilities. It's literally a money extraction tool. And I think Tomer kind of nailed it. He spoke to that effect as far as, people who try to kind of maybe minimize the difference between Bitcoin and everything else, or try to kind of, rationalize about these other things outside of Bitcoin. Essentially, it's contributing to people being dissuaded from Bitcoin and moving away from it. I think Bitcoin maximalists get kind of villainized as like being, some kind of like religious fervor or cult kind of energy. It's none of that. It's just truth, because truth is unforgiving and truth hurts when you're on the wrong side of it. And I really encourage people just to look at it from that point of view. If you feel differently, if you feel like there's something really special about all the other shit outside of Bitcoin, and shit is the correct word, that's why we call them shit coins. If you think there's something valuable there, look inward, check yourself, make sure you actually have put in enough time to understand Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is the light that actually shows you what all these other things are. If you understand it well enough, you won't go near any of that other stuff. It's just the facts. I like Tomer. I used to be involved in shitcoins back in the day. I used to hold a bunch of different assets and think there was a bunch of value there. And I own less Bitcoin today because of it. And, I'm so happy at some point I got rid of all that shit and I'm Bitcoin only now. But my God, I'd be in an even better place than I am today if I had done that sooner. So that's the big takeaway. That's all I got to say.
Hey Thomas, how you doing, man? What do you think?
Well, I missed most of Fred's. I jumped in late. I was in a meeting, but I've had a lot of conversations with him about it, and I get a tremendous amount of shit because I wouldn't say I stuck up for him or anything like that, but I consider him a friend, and this whole thing just saddens me because I got a tremendous amount of I got a tremendous amount of value from the fraternity that he was at the center of creating over the last year. And so I don't celebrate at all its destruction, which is really the effect of all of this. I don't really want any part of this meme game. I mean, if Fred had approached this and said, "Look, I want to point out how ridiculous this part of the market is," and announced what he was doing, why he was doing it, while he was doing it, and say, "Look how stupid this is. I'm going to do a stupid coin. Watch how ridiculous it is," and then was very transparent about his financial activities on this, then I think he could have made a point and then distanced himself from that whole ecosystem and saying this is not a place where people want to go. But now he's hosting the meme coin game show this afternoon. This just seems like ridiculous. And he's free to do whatever he wants to do. He's doing it for attention or satire or boredom, whatever. But the thing that I would just say this: people are going to lose money in the meme coin space. And if you are seen as a leader who is pushing this, you really expose yourself to unwanted security risks. So someone could lose money, and it doesn't matter whether it's true or not. They might blame Fred, and then they come after Fred and they say, "I want my money back. I lost $500,000 or I lost $100,000. You owe me that money back." And it won't matter whether that's true or not. You're just going to expose yourself to unnecessary thing. So I just don't want any part of it. I think it's bad karma, and I think bad karma gets bad outcomes. So I hope he gets past this. he's to me, he's still a very interesting person, and I still consider him a friend. But that doesn't mean I don't object to what he's doing here. And I would love for us to get past all this and have 2025 have a great fraternity again, because I think there's so much opportunity for us to share divergent ideas. We don't all have to agree on everything, but I do think that you have to have a core ethos. And I think, contributing to the overall economy and the space, it should be the ethos. It doesn't necessarily mean Bitcoin maxi to the extent, because I do think there's going to be a lot of TradFi projects that are adjacent to Bitcoin, but they're meant to be positive to the ecosystem. There's nothing positive about meme coins. It's literally taking money from someone else. There'll be winners and losers, but for every winner there is losers. And so in that sense, it's zero sum. And I don't like it. I'm not going to be part of it. But I do get a lot of shit because I don't come down harder on Fred. It just is what it is.
Thanks for taking the reins, Justin. Go ahead and keep rolling as many as you want, because I think this is pretty cathartic and whatnot. But I'm getting ready for my point, and I'll hit the road and try to keep the space alive. If it dies, I'm sorry, but go ahead, Justin, and keep.
Yeah, I think. Well, obviously, Darkside is next, but it is nice to hear you guys, especially you guys that are really close with Fred. Maybe you went to LA and hung out with him and are friends too. Man, I'm so I have respect for you guys for coming down on the right side of this thing and coming out publicly and doing the right thing. So, hey, Darkside.
Hey Justin, how you doing, bud?
Real good,
Um,
man.
yeah. So look, a lot of this drama, I just try not to get involved because I don't think it's productive, right? Like it's just drama. I get it. I understand it. I understand why people are offended, but for me, it's just negative energy, and I just try not to let it kind of seep into my world, right? I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. I'm a Bitcoin first, right? Like, Bitcoin is perfect money. Bitcoin is the only use case for blockchain technology. Everything else requires an oracle. Everything else is just software with a cryptographic function, or so I guess you could say. Um, but I will say this: having at that conference, there is a massive pool of capital that's looking to get into Bitcoin, that's looking for ways to do so, and they don't see the world in many ways the same way we do, right? Like they live on fiat rails. That's why Coinbase Institutional is doing so well, right? Like there's a lot of different push pulls. But I kind of wanted to touch on one thing you were talking about earlier, which was stable coins. And I'm kind of torn on stable coins for obvious reasons. But the one thing I think that it's fair to point out is that stable coins are fully reserve banking, at least on fiat rails, right? So, if you're like me and you think that the number one enemy of the society is the Federal Reserve, then stable coins are your friend, right? Stable coins represent the biggest threat to the Federal Reserve, and fully reserve banking that I've seen yet in my lifetime. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I know there's a lot of talk about stable coins and this stable coin bill. And, of course, I have no inside information. I don't know what people are thinking. But if they are thinking that the Treasury is going to sell directly to stablecoin companies and bypass the Fed, I see that as a huge win. I'm curious what others in the room see as sort of how the stablecoin thing plays out. But that's my two sats.
Hey, Joe.
Hi, Justin. How are you doing?
Good. I hope we're not about to get rugged here on the space. You have a response to about the stable coins and the Fed?
Yes. Here's the problem. I think Lauren is going to rug us in a second here, and we could have an entire space just on stablecoins. full disclosure, my firm is working very deeply with regulators launching stablecoins. So, I think it's important to be honest about. So I've sort of a biased view on some of these things. So I disagree with several of the comments respectfully that Dark just made about both the construction of stablecoins being fully reserved back. Is I think that is going to be eventually narrowed and gone, especially with the new bill. If you look closely at the bill that has been proposed on Congress. And I don't think at all it undermines the Federal Reserve. If anything, it'll strengthen the Federal Reserve's reach outside of domestic borders with how they're putting it together, and it's going to only proliferate that issue. I do have very thorough, sort of deep thoughts I put together on the meme coin issue, which I don't know if we have time to get into, but to me, I think this meme coin movement is, I'll give you the TLDR. I encourage Bitcoin brothers and sisters that are analyzing this issue to understand that meme coins are perhaps one of the greatest things to happen for Bitcoin in currently and in the near future, because what they are doing, they are exposing the VC cabal of people that get lockups and privileged access and launch these vaporware tokens